Yo, I respectfully disagree podcast. This is going to be episode 112. Um, this is a topic that I find very important based on what's going on in the entire country at this current time. And that topic is going to be education and the fact that we're having an issue with more and more teachers deciding to go into early retirement or just completely walk away from the classroom. And on this episode, I've invited Marshane. Met him through a friend of mine, Charles, who's also been on the podcast. This is a great dude. And he's been in education now for 12 years. So I felt like it would be a great conversation to have with a different face. And you're currently in Georgia. So
Correct.
instead of me, bringing people on from Kentucky and things like that, just kind of keeping it in-house, I think it's interesting to get a point of view from outside of Kentucky, because like I said, I've been reading articles and things, and I feel like this is going on in a lot of different places. So first of all, man, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, bro. Thank you. It's my honor. Much appreciated. I listen to the podcast, so I'm a big fan of it.
Definitely appreciate that, man. Definitely. And like I said, you've been in the education field for 12 years now. So just kind of elaborate on that, because I think it's important to talk about, because as we go through this conversation, like I said, I want to highlight why we feel teachers are leaving, but I also want to touch on what I feel like is important, and that's having more males in the classroom. I think that would be a big help to fix some of these generational things that's going on in terms of behavior, or giving young boys different role models, different perspectives in the classroom. So you being involved in education for quite some time, is like, what made you want to go that route? Like, why did you choose education in terms of a career path?
Man, honestly, when I initially went to college, I kind of didn't have a clue of what I wanted to do. So by my second year, I always knew I will say I knew I wanted to coach. I was, a big basketball guy. I knew I wanted to coach. And my greatest influence as I, continued through college and started to reflect, my greatest influence was a teacher. He was a Black male. His name was Coach Joe Cagle. He's from my hometown in Missouri. And, just seeing him every day on a day-to-day basis, just the way he carried himself, the way he was respected and honored throughout the community, and just the love that, he poured into me like I was his own child. So as I continue, through my second year of college, it kind of just clicked, and I'm like, I want to major in education. I want to have that same impact that Coach Cagle had on me. So that's what made me just want to go into it and do it. And it's got to be something that's really within your heart. When you make a decision, Absolutely. You want to be an educator, it's got to be something that's really just in you.
Absolutely. And that's why, I'm married to a teacher. My wife is a teacher, and I wanted her on this conversation, but I guess for her, she works with special needs children. So she was kind of talking about how, like, her perspective on this situation is kind of different versus being in a regular classroom, because, her students are kind of different. So she was like, I'll leave that up to y'all. And, I respect her decisions. But like you said, you got to have a big heart for that. And I'm glad that you touched on it, that you had an influence from a male teacher. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Because like I said, I want to dive into that a little bit later, but I honestly feel like that's important, and you are the proof of that. So here in Louisville, I've been reading articles, and with school getting ready to start back in about 2 weeks, we've had almost 200 teachers either early retirement or just put in their resignation. And I found that to be very alarming, considering that, school starts back, students return back on the 10th. And right now it's like to the point to where I've even seen, on Facebook, they're like, hey, we're looking for teachers, hiring, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, that to me is just like, it's mind blowing to know that we're at a point where there's a shortage of teachers. Like, even here, there's a shortage on bus drivers. Like, man, they had a drive the other day where they're just like, if you're welcome, you got the credentials, we need as many bus drivers as we can get. And is it the same way down there or similar or what? Like,
Yeah,
that's
very.
crazy.
I mean, basically the same way, man. Just working, like I say, in the field. Teachers, they're leaving, man. They're leaving, and they're going to all these other different careers. Some of them are getting into the tech field, just starting off. Like I know a couple people this summer I knew got into like these data analyst jobs. But just going in something that's a little bit more chill. The bus driver situation is a very, very big deal here. It's one of the reasons, like how the county, like the way that the county flows the buses, they use the same bus drivers for middle school, elementary, middle school, and high school. So just because it is a shortage, like
Yeah.
sometimes starting off the beginning of the year, we had kids at the school till 5:45. We get out at 4:30 just because we don't have enough bus drivers. So drivers are having to go drop kids off and then come back to the school and get bus drivers. I mean, and get more students, just to come. So it's a big shortage on bus drivers here. And like you say, the teachers, they're leaving, man, especially the older teachers. They're leaving. They're leaving, and they're seeing a lot of things that they don't like.
And honestly, I'm glad you went there because I feel like that's important as well because, growing up for me, a lot of my, early elementary and stuff, the teachers were of age, but you could tell that they had a true passion for it.
Right.
And they actually cared about us. Like
Right.
they were hands on. If certain students, was slow with grasping the concepts, they went and tried to help that child until everybody caught up. Where I feel like nowadays, because of the behavior alone, a lot of that passion has kind of gone out the window. And it's just like now teachers are almost looking at this like a 9 to 5 in a
Right. I
sense.
agree.
And it's like that passion is no longer there. And like you said, with teachers that have been there and seasoned into this, and they're looking at some of the changes that's going on, whether it's behavior, whether it's how they can correct these kids in the classroom. I don't know how it is there, but I know several schools here, it's like they're trying everything that they can not to suspend students. They're, regardless of what's going on, they're trying to keep them in the building and just work with them. But every single day is just like the same kids over and over and over. And that's
Right.
got to get tiring. You know what I'm saying? Like teachers are burnt out. So if I know I can go ahead and retire early, then I'm out. That's
I
wow.
agree. Yeah, that's one of the big things here too. Like you say, that has causing that's causing the burnout effect or whatever, and it leads to administrators not trusting these teachers who are seasoned teachers. They've been around a long time, and so when they had a strategy or whatever that's been working with kids, you may have even a younger administrator automatically try to tell this older teacher, of what to do and how they should do it, and it just creates a lack of trust. It creates a lack of trust. And sometimes to these older teachers, it's demoralizing and just showing up over and over. And let's be honest, as you get older, you got a little bit less patience. And
That's
so
true.
dealing with something that you've had great success at. So some of them just throw their hands up and they're like, hey, I can't do this anymore. It gets to be a little bit, it just gets to be a little bit tiring. Especially like even in my situation, I'm currently out of the classroom now, moving to an administrative role. On my last couple of years were like that, just trying to work with kids, trying to help them. And I'm not a big fan of suspension, but I do also believe kids sometimes should have to be, you should have to get some type of punishment for your
Absolutely.
actions, and working at schools like Title I schools, which are considered low income schools, a lot of these kids don't get suspended because of what their parents are going through and what they went through. Honestly, I didn't grow up with a lot of money either, but my parent wanted me to go to school and wanted me to behave. That wasn't an excuse for me to go and be disrespectful to the teachers or just to go fight in different things like that. So that's called the influctuation of, these teachers just leaving in mass waves. It's, just undermines them and undermines their integrity of what they can actually do with these kids or whatever. So it's just creating a big divide between administration and the teachers. And, the teachers, instead of putting up with it, they're leaving, man. It is tough mentally to show up to every day when you're going to be disrespected, you're going to be undermined. When you try to collaborate with the administration, they basically just blow you off and different things like that. I've seen it all, man. And it just, it makes the teachers, they just tired of it and they just leave.
Absolutely, man. And honestly, man, when people hear this, especially people here they're gonna commend you for even expressing that, because I know a lot of people that feel the same exact way. So
So
my bad, my bad. I didn't mean to cut you
no,
off.
you're good.
Going back to what you were saying in terms of, you know, growing up, how you were raised and things like that, because I agree with you wholeheartedly. It was like my parents knew, hey, you better go to school, you better listen, don't be causing no disruptive nothing. Because if I hear about it, you're gonna have to deal with me when you get back home.
Right.
And I feel like that's a lot of the aspect that's gone as well. Because nowadays, a lot of the teachers are getting into it with the parents, even when they're trying to say, hey, your kid is causing a lot of disruption here in the room. We're trying to correct them, blah, blah, blah. But now it's a shouting match back and forth with the parents. I see it every day because I volunteer to coach where my wife teaches at. So they're a Title I as well. So a lot of the
Right.
things that you were saying is like, I understand it. She tells me about it. I see it firsthand every day. And it's like there is a burnout, because just me coaching 2 hours Monday through Thursday, I see a lot of what you guys see constant. And I'm saying to myself, if I can't handle it for 2 hours, I take my cap off to y'all for waking up every day, going back into that grind. And it's crazy. And also, I don't know how it is there, but for some of the underperforming schools here, they're trying to offer incentives in terms of increasing the salary, just to give that motive for teachers to come in to try to help some of these underperforming schools, because a lot of teachers are leaving there. And there's a
Right.
lot of different factors that plays into that as well. And I'm saying to myself, it's like, as a whole, like, where are we going as a country in terms of education? Because that's a fear of mine, having young children. Like, my oldest child is 10, and it's almost like you're watching it collapse in a sense.
Right. I agree.
It's scary.
I totally agree. It's definitely, like you say, it's definitely scary, man. It is like kind of collapsing right in our face. Just to see some of the things that's just going on a daily basis. And like you say, the thing with the parents, I've had situations to where parents are upset at me just for honestly just being very stern with young men and just trying to teach them the right thing, what to do, and to lead them in their life. And being a Black male in the classroom, when I'm dealing with these young Black men that I deal with, I try to teach them, give them a cosmopolitan of what really society is going to be like for you. Even though some of the things that you may do, you may consider kiddie and over and over and over, but honestly, for our boys, we don't get opportunities like that over and over to misbehave and do things, in society. It's just not the same, it's not fair, but I mean, that's just that the reality that we deal with. So dealing with young men and trying to teach them the right way. I've had some women, honestly, and it's most of the time, it's been women. They give me a hard time. They're the kids at that age, honestly, in middle school, some of them are the man of the house, so it's like, how can you tell me something? I don't even get told what to do at home. So trying to tell me something, and I do what I want to do at home. I make the decisions. I do this at home. I do certain actions at home, and you're trying to tell me what to do. So the kids, and and it's no knock on them, but they struggle with that. When you're a kid, you only go by what you can do and what you've been taught. So it's really hard to, to even get upset at the kid, because that's all they've been taught, and that's what they learn. But I've had some kids, removed from my classes just for me being stern with them, and the mama's usually, my baby, you giving them a hard time, this and that. And I always tell them, look, he's a young Black man. I'm a Black teacher. I would never tell any student, Black, white, anything, the wrong thing, what to do or whatever. I'm actually trying to save him from going down that rabbit hole of just doing silly things or whatever that can lead to incarceration and different things like that. And unfortunately, I've seen a lot of the kids that, they kind of did, parents let them do things. When they got to high school, they end up either dropping out, or you end up seeing them on the news or something like that. So yeah, man, that plays a big role in it, that parental support. Like you say, you don't have to be financially well off to be supportive of your child's education. And I think that's a big misconception that we get in education, just because my child goes to a certain Title I school or something like that, I don't have to be supportive. Or sometimes they just send them to school and think that's enough. Like, I'm just going to send you to
Mhm.
school. I don't really know what's going on with you. And that's enough. So the kids kind of just doing whatever they want to. And it just leads to total chaos, man. It can be really chaotic at times.
I absolutely agree yet again. And that's why I'm telling you, like, man, just hearing you say all of this. And it's like, dude, I'm so glad that you're on this episode because I was picking my brain and I was like, I'm trying to figure out who I want to have this conversation with because I feel like it's extremely important. And I don't know if you and Charles have ever had this conversation, but we've never had a black teacher
Yeah.
ever.
Wow.
And it was maybe my junior or senior year of high school when they finally hired an African American librarian. But even with that, she was never in the classroom. And honestly, from kindergarten to 12th, I think I've had 3 male teachers total. And it's one of those things, you know, like you said, we didn't have a lot of wealth and stuff. So it was just one of them things where, you know, our parents were just constantly encouraging us to get an education, do this and do that. And for me, school just kind of came off easy. So I made good grades, honor graduate, things like that. It wasn't until I got to college where the challenge actually came because now I got so many different distractions and things like that.
Right.
And I'm one of them people where I could memorize well. So I would just cram the night before a test and just regurgitate it back into, you know, taking the test or whatever. But when I got to college, I realized that don't work at all.
Right.
And that's what I'm saying. It's like, I feel like if I had somebody that would have been more hands-on, talk to me, give me different examples and things, I feel like I might have been more career driven as well because I walked on campus for almost 2 years before I even declared. And I went into communication thinking it's an easy way out. It's like, oh, they told me that as long as I have a degree, I'm gonna be set, I'm gonna be this and that. And not even having a taste of the real world coming from a small area, I got punched in the mouth with reality as soon as I graduated. And I was just like, man. So hearing you say that you're trying to talk to these kids, give them a reality check early so that they can focus and make decisions with a thinking cap on
Right.
versus just like I'm just gonna live life and whatever comes comes. It's like, nah, man. So definitely salute to you. And that's why lastly, you're hitting it on the head in terms of why it's important to have males, especially African American males. Because we just did a couple of episodes. I forgot the numbers, but we were talking about our youth and how we can reach and make better decisions for our youth. Because here in Louisville, we're having a like violence, gun violence. I'll start there.
Okay.
Gun violence here in Louisville, the middle schools especially, the number of fights and stuff that is being documented on a regular basis, that plays a factor in everything that we're talking about in terms of teachers no longer wanting to deal with it. But at the end of the day, throw the school aspect out of it. Like you're saying, these kids need a role model. They need guidance. They need somebody that's constantly talking to them. And that's where I feel like, in my opinion, if they had more representations in the classroom of people that they can relate to, share similar experiences, then I feel like they might respect it more. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah, most definitely. Most definitely. Like you say, it's huge for them to just to see somebody that looks like them in that position or whatever. And honestly, what helped me once I got into the classroom, man, getting to know the kids, I kind of understand their lingo. You know, that I'm in Atlanta. It's big on hip hop. You know, it's big. It's a big thing in the culture, and just kind of understanding, you know, how they operate. Sometimes you have to be able to kind of stoop to their level and actually understand what they're talking about or whatever. You got to meet them where they are. But sometimes you're trying to talk all educated and stuff in a superficial way. They don't resonate with that with sometimes. Now, once you're able to draw them in, then you can talk to them about how to talk, how to dress and different things like that. And so once they would see me do certain things, they would understand, like, you know, you don't have to be a certain way just because of how you dress or different things like that. So I think with a lot of my students, you know, over time, once they got to know me and they just seen, you know, the influence that I can have on them just by conversations, talking to them, talking to their moms, dad, showing up to their games. That's a big thing. A lot of my students play sports. They love to see me at their games, man. It was such a big deal. A lot of them work at the grocery stores near me now. I have 3 grocery stores near me, and man, I see so many of them out, and it's so heartwarming because literally every time I see them, it's just such big hugs and handshakes. Absolutely. And they're excited for me to actually see that they're working, you know, because they know when I used to be in the classroom, I used to tell them I taught math. So just teaching them about how you're going to use math in the real world, how you're going to count your money, how you're going to do this. And so when they see me in these stores and stuff like that, man, it's just such a wonderful thing. And some of them, you know, will actually tell you, Mr. Foreman, you was right. I know you used to be fussing at me, but you was right, you know, about how things are going and how it was playing out for me. So them seeing me just on a day-to-day basis, man, I can count thousands of conversations that I've had with these kids, man, boys and girls. So just about doing the right thing, and staying consistent and staying positive and teaching them that, you know, every day is not going to be perfect, but just try to make your week, you know, each week better than the last or whatever. And they'll kind of just give you a little bit of longevity in life about doing the right thing. So it's a big deal, man, them seeing us on a day-to-day basis. Lots of positivity.
I love it, man. I love it. And that's why, you know, piggybacking off of what you just said, my wife is a teacher, her sister's a teacher, her brother's a teacher, her mother was a teacher, and the same things. It's like when we're out for dinner and stuff, and different people come in and they're like, "Oh, Miss Ward," you know, talking to my mother-in-law, and they're coming up, giving her a hug, doing the same exact things that you're talking about. And she's been out of the classroom for quite some time now. So just that impact alone, same way with my wife, like she gets so much recognition outside of work and the things that she does. And I tell people all the time, that's where the passion comes in. And like you said in the beginning, having the heart for it. And I feel like as educators, that's the most key aspect of it all. Now, once you lose that, you get what we're seeing now.
Correct. I totally agree.
And it's
you
just
know, and
go ahead.
And some of the things that's one of the biggest things why the teachers are leaving, because they're feeling like their passion is being taken away from them. Their passion, their creativity, just how to operate on a day-to-day basis in kids. Because honestly, man, you know, being out the classroom last year was my first year. So I got to see both sides of it, you know, from my experience as a teacher and from an administrative role. Man, honestly, if you're not in them classes on a day-to-day basis, you really don't know the full dynamics. You can come in, observe, and see parts of it, but you really don't know unless you're in the class with these kids on a day-to-day basis, the impact that these teachers are having on them and how to operate. So some schools are want teachers to be like robots, you know, of how they handle things or whatever. And that takes their passion away. Teachers become teachers because they're creative. They're, like you say, they're a big heart. They know how to get to kids. They know how to get on these kids' level and talk to them in the correct way and just get them to do the right thing. So when that is stripped away from a teacher, I think, you know, it just eats at their core, man. And that's why a lot of them, you know, I've seen many that resign and, you know, they cry. You know, it's a big deal that they're leaving because they feel like something is being taken away from them, and man, they just decide to go. You know, so I would say that's the biggest thing that why a lot of them are leaving too. You know, their heart is being taken away from them about what they're really, really passionate about.
Absolutely. So it's like, I didn't want to tie the conversations because I know 2 people personally that are stepping down, or they're like, you know what, I can't do it anymore. But I didn't want to mix the conversation. So hopefully once they hear this, if they want to come on and share exactly why they're just like, you know what, I can't do it, then you know, the mic is always open. I would love to hear that as well. And I'm hoping that people that hear this want to continue this conversation. But it's just like, it's scary. And I'm not sure. How old is your oldest?
Oh, she's 10.
So we're both in that same category. And I'm like, we're looking at one more year, we're having to put her through middle school and things like that. And it's like, not only am I afraid of some of the different things that she's going to be exposed to just socially, but now it's like, are we putting her in the best situations to learn.
Right.
And that's been the conversations that we're having now. Like, we just want to make sure we're making the right decisions on what schools we're sending them to and putting them in. Make sure all their teachers are actually wanting to be in
Right.
the classroom.
Yeah,
Because I
it's a
see
big
it
deal.
too much, man. It's just like, oh, here we go again. They just like throw their hands in the air because it's nothing you can really do. And I'm just like,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
scary.
Big
It's
deal. Me and my
scary.
wife actually, we had that conversation a couple of days ago. We were talking about what school that she's going to, be able to attend. Because me working for the county, I can send her to any school that I want to, just as long as I can get her there.
Mhm.
So like you say, my biggest thing is, socially, I know things are going to happen. No setting is perfect, but I want her to be in an environment that's, that pushes for students to be thriving, and where the teacher is not getting worn out. They're having to stop every 5 to 10 minutes to deal with behavior. Not only that is, it's that's their wear on the teacher, but they wear it on the students. And it just you can say it just creates a bad environment, and how much instructional time is lost from teachers having to deal with behavior. So you may have a 50-minute class, but a 15 minutes every day is having to deal with discipline and behavior. Man, that takes up so much instructional time within a year. So yeah, I'm going through that same thing, right now or whatever. So it's a little anxious and nervous thinking about what's next for. I just want to put her in the right positive environment, and hopefully everything that we teach her at home, hopefully that kicks in and just helps push her, to the next level. So hopefully
Absolutely.
that pays off.
Absolutely. And that's key too. Like you said, what is being taught at home. And, not to keep rambling or whatever, I don't want to water down the conversation, but I feel like that's a lost element as well. And, some of the conversation that we had on the previous episode where we were talking about what we can do for the youth and things like that, the conversation came up about single parent households, and you got a parent that's constantly trying to work to provide and put food on the table, and the child is the one that suffers because they really don't have that structure or discipline aspect, and they're kind of raising themselves. And like you said earlier, it's like, I don't have no one at home that's going to correct me and things like that. So it's just, there's not a remedy to it in a sense, because like you said, you really can't control what's happening at home. You can just
Right.
hope that you teach your kids and they go out and make the best decisions that they could possibly make. So dope conversation, man. And even me volunteering to coach, I tell them kids all the time, give me your schedules once they go to middle school, because I help with elementary. Once they go to middle school, I'm pulling up at the games. I'm doing that. And like
Right.
you said earlier, it's like the impact that it has. Because we had some
Yeah.
middle school kids, when they see you, they run, hey, coach, da 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 da. And that's what it's all about, just making
Yeah.
positive impact. And hopefully it'll carry on with them every step of the way.
Yeah, like you say, man, they love, just to seeing that support. Because a lot of times, depending on the situation, one parent, like you say, may be absent for, working or different things like that, or just simply just be in one parent household. So when they just see somebody there to support them, man, it just goes a long way in them. And, they remember it forever though. Like, and them leads to conversations when they show up on Monday or whatever day it is. It may be the next day, whenever the next time you see them, them a conversation that you can just simply spark about. I seen you did this at the game, or I seen you do that. Just have life conversation. That was one of my big things, that I really harped on when I was a teacher. I kind of strayed away from instructional talk all the time. I just talk to them about life, what's going on in the world, in the the country, the pop culture, all that thing, just different topics, and just trying to see where they were at on a lot of different topics. And man, once you get to talk to them, you'll see like, hey man, these kids are bright. They definitely know what's going on at a young age. And some of the things, it forms their opinions, some for the good, some for the bad. But having them conversations with them, you can kind of sway them away from doing whether it's good or bad, and just making a bigger impact, just kind of knowing what goes on with them on a consistent basis.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. So, like I said, dude, like, I definitely appreciate your time, man. This is a great conversation. Um, at the end of the day, keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, it's
I'm
been
telling
good,
you,
man.
it's so important. Like, I'm all the way in Kentucky, you in Georgia, and it's the same thing.
Right.
Like, And I'm pretty sure it's like that around the whole country.
Yeah.
That's what's needed. More people like you that are able to shine that light and tap into these kids and figure out what ways you can connect with them just to help them. My wife as well. Like, I'm telling you, man, like teachers deserve more than what they're getting. And the fact that a lot of people are not pushing for it is what's scary.
Yeah.
Like some of the things, not trying to get political and stuff like that, but a lot of the things that people are out here pushing and fighting for, not saying that it's not important, but we're talking about a foundation that impacts people in general, generation after generation. Is like, once you start watering down education levels and things like that, these are the people we're sending out into the real world.
Right.
And it's just, it's scary, man. It really is. So like I said, man, I definitely appreciate you pulling up, sharing that with us. And for those that are listening, like I said, the podcast will be available on all streaming services as well as YouTube, IG pages. I Respectfully Disagree podcast. Feel free to tap in. Is there anything else you want to touch on? Or?
Nah, man, I appreciate it. Like you say, this is a big topic, man. Not, worldwide, especially here in the US. It is a big topic, and it's definitely having an influence on how society is. If you look, gun violence is up in the country. Probably 10 times as much. It's unbelievable, but it's leaning over to in education, not necessarily. Of course, we've seen the school shootings, but the behaviors and everything, it's definitely leaning over into the classroom. And I don't really know the solution. Like you said earlier, I don't know the solution, but definitely a great topic that should be tackled on a little bit more.
Absolutely. And like I said, I hope this creates a snowball effect and more people want to tap into it and see if I can get some other teachers a part of this, or if you ever want to continue the conversation, whether it's education or talk about sports and things like that, man, the mic is always open, dude. Like I said, I enjoy this conversation. This is my second time actually interacting with you. And the first time, we sat around talking about sports and stuff.
Right. Yeah.
And it's just like, I'm all for it, man. And real quick before we get off here, rest in power to Bill Russell. Like,
yes, sir.
That was a huge blow. I was coming back from the gym and I saw that today, and I was just like, he lived a full life, man. So,
and a full life. I seen it this morning. Yeah, definitely a full life, a full blessed life. Absolutely. Did a lot, man. Did a lot for us as people, not only just in sports. Absolutely. Definitely a pioneer. Yeah, he did a lot, man.
That's why I wanted to make sure I touched on that as well. Like I said, we talking about education and influential people, especially African-American males and things like that. So can't end the conversation without bringing that up, especially it happening today.
Right.
Like I said, man, definitely appreciate your time, man. Peace and blessings to you and your family. Feel free to come back, man, anytime.
It's the same to you, bro. Take care.
Thank you, dog. I appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
Ass toasted, no competition. I'm toasted. I feel so high, I feel so live. My body's in the twine. I'm toasted. I feel so live, and I know why. That I can't deny. I'm toasted. Giddy, fine wine, fools, malt liquor.